Well, whatever happened to Maui? This is a redacted special report. It was one of the worst disasters in modern U.S. history, and then it just disappeared from the headlines. I'm talking about Maui, 102 lives lost, thousands of homes and businesses destroyed, historic Hawaiian town left in ashes. Who's buying up this land? Where are the families now? And why does it seem like the people who lost everything are being pushed out permanently, while developers move in and buy up this land? So today we're pulling the curtain back on the rezoning games that are taking place right now, the land grabs, the permit denials, which are in full effect. Yes, even the directed energy weapon theories that just won't go away. Why? The geoengineering, the climate engineering that's maybe mostly responsible for this. Why? Because it's probably true. So let's dig into this. Let's start with the basics. How is the rebuilding going? This is where my research started on this. Well, the short answer is it's not. Almost nothing is being rebuilt. As of a few weeks ago, just a few weeks ago at the end of April, only 8 homes have actually been rebuilt. Meanwhile, 341 permits have been issued for reconstruction, but that's out of the over 2,200 destroyed structures. So why the discrepancy? It's interesting. Is it because the people that own those structures have been paid off? Gone? Many of them, yes, gone, moved away, never coming back? The property numbers, astonishing. 300 property owners have been issued permits allowing them to rebuild their houses on the front side of the further from the ocean. Not a single permit, though, has been granted to anyone with a coastal home that was in the fire zone. Debris has been cleared from over 1,500 properties, so they're ready to go. Builders call that a scrape and build. A scrape and build. One builder I spoke with today told me a scrape and build permit process can take 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks. Many of those locals are either living in temporary housing, hotels, or they've already left the island altogether, never to come back. Just for some context here, I wanted to look at a similar timeline, something that happened at a similar pace and time of the Maui fires. So I decided to look at the Marshall Fire near Boulder, Colorado. It happened around Christmas 2021, destroyed entire neighborhoods, gone. So how is the rebuilding process going? Great, actually. Let's dive into the numbers. In Louisville, city of Louisville, approximately 90% of destroyed homes. Now, maybe I'm saying this wrong. It might be Louisville, because, like Louisville, Kentucky. But Louisville, 90% of the homes were destroyed and have been rebuilt or are under construction. 90% were destroyed, and almost all of them are rebuilt fully. The town of Superior, rebuilding permits have been issued for 74% of the destroyed structures. Over half of those rebuilt homes cleared for occupancy now. And the unincorporated area of Boulder County, rebuilding has been slightly slower because you have some big custom homes that were destroyed. But get this, 63% of homes there have either been fully rebuilt or have received permits to do so. Again, large custom homes on multiple acres in the Boulder region. Totally different from these 60, 70, 80-year-old homes in Maui that were small. They were small, humble homes. The native population that lived in these homes for decades handed them down through their family's history. And Boulder is almost fully back. But this is where it gets interesting. According to the Maui County officials and the mayor's office, they've offered permit exemptions to help homeowners rebuild quickly, but only if those homes aren't too close to the shoreline. That's right, rebuilding inland. Mostly allowed. Rebuilding on oceanfront land, sorry, blocked. Not going to happen. Not gonna work here anymore. So now let's talk about who owns Maui now. In the months after the fire, rumors started swirling that BlackRock and other deep-pocketed developers were swooping in to buy the land from desperate families. Of course, we know that BlackRock uses all sorts of subsidiaries, so good luck tracking it back to BlackRock. But the truth is a bit murkier than all of that, but it's still pretty troubling. According to a 2024 report from the Civil Beat, land sales around Lahaina jumped significantly in just the first 4 months of 2024. Some of these were sales to local buyers, yes. One developer, though, alone paid $20 million for a 20-acre parcel near Lahaina. And once you start seeing multi-million-dollar oceanfront deals going through while residents still can't even get permits to rebuild their homes, then you have to start wondering what's going on here. Was this all just a coincidence? Or was this a disaster leveraged for mass development? Take a look at this. We looked into this $20 million purchase. Here I went through it today. You can see this is an 8K filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Kanapali Land LLC entered into the purchase for the $20 million. And here's the smoking gun, guys. Again, over 300 property owners on the Mawaka side of Front Street. That's the side further inland from the ocean. In other words, the less desirable land from a development perspective. They've been granted permits to rebuild their homes, 300 of them. But guess how many permits have been granted for the oceanfront properties? Zero. Not one. This is 2 years after the fire. 348 inland building permits, zero for the coastal properties. So if you live inland, great, you're allowed to start rebuilding with a lot of conditions. If you can afford them, by the way.
Maybe they've been busy, Clayton, because the weather's been nice.
Been at the beach. But take a look at your screen here. See these green areas here? This is the area now. This is the prime coastal real estate. Zero rebuilding in these zones that have all been destroyed. And what's the excuse? Well, they say, environmental concerns. And in fact, they can rebuild with SMA permits. SMA shoreline area regulations will still apply to parcels located on the Maui Front Street, but SMA establishes control on developments near the shoreline to protect the coastal zone. Coastal erosion is a worsening problem, and 85% of Maui shorelines experiencing long-term erosion. You need to get that SMA permit. But locals aren't buying it, and neither should you, because what's really happening here is a form of slow-motion land seizure. They'll bury you in red tape, stall your permitting process, wear you down until you finally give up. You sell that land, you sell that property, usually at a massive discount to property developers. Then the developers swoop in, they rezone it, they get the permits, they get everything flipped and taken care of. Sound familiar? It should. It's happened many times before. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the directed energy weapons. DEWs. Sounds crazy, right? Science fiction stuff. Did the government, which has had directed energy weapons, climate manipulation weapons, geoengineering weapons since at least World War II that we know of, did they destroy or manipulate this valuable land on purpose? Well, of course, the story gained massive traction in the days after the fire when people started noticing, weird patterns, right? Cars melted next to untouched trees and structures. Homes burned to the foundation while plastic trash bins were perfectly fine. Okay. Blue objects mysteriously unscathed. Blue roofs, blue cars, fine. Cars to umbrellas to rooftops. Maybe that's all a distraction, though. The same kind developed for military use since the 1940s. These climate engineering weapons, these directed energy weapons, were used to target specific areas in Lahaina to clear land for future development. Maybe. Fact checkers, of course, quickly jumped in on this, called this nonsense. They said it's just dry brush. It's hurricane force winds down power lines that caused this. The good old fact checker websites, factcheck.org, a name you can trust. High winds, drought conditions led to Maui fires. No evidence that it was intentionally set, they said. Or the Associated Press, which is a mouthpiece of the intelligence community, received lots of money from USAID. They said, nothing to see here, trees and poles standing, that's normal. Video doesn't show a laser beam, that's just an old explosion from Chile that was used and shared online. But in their debunking, did they actually just confirm that, yes, hurricane force winds, dry brush conditions, all of those things were used under climate geoengineering by the United States military for a long time? All of this talk of lasers might be a total distraction. No lasers weren't used. There's no evidence that I found at all of lasers being used there. But in fact, wildfires as a military weapon has been long established. Take a look at this report. forest fire as a military weapon. 1975's classified report exposing how the U.S. military uses weather modification and, yes, wildfires as a military weapon. Geoengineeringwatch.org. You can watch the full report on it. And we're going to have more on this part of the story with a special guest in just moments. But let me ask you, why is it always the most valuable land that gets conveniently wiped clean, just like the ones in New Orleans after Katrina, the most valuable riverfront property, homeowners now permanently pushed out, sold off to casinos, shopping centers, now line the places where there were hundreds of homes before, all gone now. It's very great place to go stroll now with push your strollers around and go shopping. No homes there anymore to deal with. It's really hard to believe that this weather modification, is it so hard to believe that this weather modification arson, or is it at the very least a willful act of negligence? Could it be used as a cover for something bigger? We've had the directed energy whistleblowers on our show who've worked on these projects, who told us right to our faces how the deep state has used these weather modification tools and directed energy weapons to launch earthquakes, destroy entire cities, and more, destabilize governments. It works. That's why they use it. And blame it on the weather. In California during the wildfires, smart meters being used in homes to incinerate homes from the inside out, when other homes on the street were totally untouched. Why did the fires start inside homes? I thought they were wildfires coming over the hills. Why did that house just there burst into flames because of a smart energy meter inside the house? That's odd, right? You decide. So let's not forget what else was lost. The Lahaina fire didn't just destroy buildings, it erased history, natives who will no longer live there. Places like the Waiahola Church, founded in the 1800s, the Lahaina Heritage Museum, gone, destroyed. Hawaiian families that have lived on this land for generations, as we've well documented over the years on this show, displaced, forced into hotels, shipped off island. And for what? So the resorts can expand? So foreign investors can turn Lahaina into the next Waikiki? It's not just a land grab, it's a cultural erasure. 2 years later, the story of Maui isn't over, but the media has stopped talking about it, of course. And maybe that's the point, because the less we look at it, the more they can get away with. So we're here to keep looking, to ask the uncomfortable questions, and to expose those hidden agendas.